Hi, Martha. How are you?
Hi, I'm really good. I'm a little sniffly today, but I'm happy to be here. It's one of my
Uh,
favorite topics to talk about self-compassion.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to have you here. And because we're not live, I'm going to do my best to channel our community and ask a lot of questions throughout. But to begin with, why don't you just give us a little background of who you are and how you got into this field?
Okay, so I'm a former tech lawyer, former preschool teacher. I like to pretend like that's a thing, um, like I'm one of those. Uh, and I started, so now I spend my time, I say teaching and learning the good stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so I study compassion and laughter yoga and Nia technique dance. So I think that's the good stuff of life. So I am a parent. I have two sons in their 20s. And how did I get into compassion? So compassion, I took a class at Stanford about 10 years ago, maybe more than that now. And I thought it would be, I went into it thinking it would be like, make me more lovely. Like I thought it would be kind of like flower arranging or something like that. That's kind of the mentality I had, which is I'm laughing now. And in particular, I remember in the first class, Kelly McGonigal, my professor, was saying, and this is about compassion is about meeting suffering. It always has a suffering component. And I really thought, uh-oh, like I swim the shallow end of the pool. I want to be on the sunny side, like, uh-oh, suffering. And I knew it was kind of embarrassing. You know, it would be too embarrassing for me to get up and leave at that point. But I'm thinking, okay, I'll ride this out. And then as she talked about the course of the progression, she explained that we would spend a couple of weeks on self-compassion and loving kindness towards self. And I remember thinking, really at the time, I would not have taken a class in self-compassion. My eyes would have not lingered on that page of the course catalog. Um, and I thought, um, I'm not going to ditch that day. I'll show up, but really, this is not, going to be that useful. Kind of, I remember in third grade when my teacher put up the multiplication tables. She was really like hard ass about it. I remember thinking, we're never going to use this. So I had that kind of like, it's not exactly a helpful open beginner's mind.
Yeah.
But as a result, the utility of it took me by storm. And of course, it became the most interesting thing and the most interesting tool from the entire progress, and really a life changer, a game changer. And I tell that story because I think I'm not alone in that we have in our culture a serious misunderstanding of what self-compassion is and what it can do. And it hurts us. It stands in our way. Um, so I think, where do I want to start? I'll tell you this. So in the compassion cultivation, so I was trained through Stanford Medical School, CCARE, the Center for Compassion, Altruism, Research, and Education.
Hmm.
It developed an 8-week curriculum on this compassion cultivation. And I became a teacher of it. And there, it's funny, it models after an old Tibetan practice of starting feeling compassion where it's easy. Like you start where it's easy, and then you say, okay, using your attention to move it to different targets or subjects, and then expanding it and using your attention. And in the East, traditionally, where it's easy, the low hanging fruit is ourselves. They start with oneself and say that's where
Hmm.
it's easy to feel all that compassion, which is shocking because in our culture, that is one of the hardest. We have to spend 2 weeks on it. I have to start with my dog.
That's easy in the West. Yeah.
That's easy. That's easy.
Yeah.
And it's actually shocking to them. Like, wait, you would not be kind to yourself? You would not
Hmm.
understand your own suffering? Like, how does that? So it as mind-boggling as that is to them, it's equally mind-boggling to us. That's like, oh, you don't have that voice in your head that's always criticizing and so forth. So anyway, having said that, it's kind of a difficult trick. So should we dig into it?
Yeah, let's dig into it. I mean, you said the word utility,
Yeah.
and you mentioned focus as well, and how difficult this is for us. And
Yeah.
I'm, again, channeling not only myself, but our community, where, we say things to ourselves we wouldn't say to anybody on the planet. And right now in our program, we're sort of introducing this concept of who's your best friend, who do you love, and how do you support that person. So, you mentioned starting with your dog. That's probably a really good entry spot for, for many and most of us who have that nagging, incessant critic that's just like pounding away. Where do we start with this?
So I think it's really so that inner critic, and not everybody has the inner critic voice. So I want to say that, because I don't want anyone to hear this and go like, oh wait, I need to get that to work through it. It's like, no, if you don't have that, don't start. You get to,
keep on walking. Yeah, right.
You collect your $200, you are
Yes.
past to go. But for many of us, the first step is really to notice it. Notice that little voice in your head, because I think it runs untended a lot. And so that certainly for me was to say, like, wait, like, and you can also notice it, start becoming a connoisseur of the language that we use.
Mm.
We have a lot of habitual language in the culture. One of my least favorite pet peeves is say, like, people say, oh, I lied. Oh, I lied. It's this. It's like, did you lie? Are you a liar? No, you misspoke. You misspoke. So just correct it. Or I'm so stupid, I'm never going to do that, whatever. And you would never hang out with a person who spoke to you that way. If someone were following you on the street and whispering those things in your ear, you'd be like, get away. So just to first notice it, really, really notice it, and then tend to it. I think that two techniques I use, and they're the reverse, is one, to how would you treat a good friend going through the same kind of problem? What would you say to them? Rick Hansen, one of my favorite teachers, says, refers to my dear friend with my same life. How would you respond to that person? And then the other, so that works for some people, and for some people it doesn't. For them, you can flip it and say, how would they coach you? What would you say to them? What would they say to you? So you asked me for some real life examples of how this shows up in my life. And one story I have is that I was really stuck, and I moved into San Francisco, and I wanted to find a new gym, and I wanted to start working out because I'd really stopped exercising, which was a very regrettable choice. And I didn't realize how stuck I was, but so I live in the middle of the Castro. And so some of the stories that I was telling myself is, if I went to a local gym, we have a community of beautiful, very body conscious men here.
Yes.
And so I just had this vision of going into a gym, and just, what was coming up was shame and guilt and more stuckness. And I wouldn't, the funny thing was, I think going back to the foundation of the mindfulness, I wasn't aware of how much shame there was. I really would have told you, feeling like I meant it, that I'm not like a guilt shame person. I was not aware of that. But when I really set the mindfulness practice, let that percolate, like, what is it? What's going on? And so I found a place up here, and I was online, and I really wanted to go. And there, by the way, I'm not the only one. There are studies of women who've been body shamed, who are the most motivated to go work out. They have the highest degree of motivation, and they are the least likely to get themselves into a gym. So that disconnect, I was embodying that, just so stuck and so like tormented. And I thought, okay, I saw that this program was starting. It was going to be an introductory course for this very fancy kind of Pilates. It's called gyrotonics. I'd done it before with friends in a different area. And I thought, this is the mothership. I can do this. And as that day approached, I didn't sign up because I was just so stuck. And as that day approached, I woke up that morning and thought, like, I have to do this, but I can't. Just I can't really convey how stuck I was. And so I
Mm.
called that day, kind of secretly hoping, oh, they'll be full and I don't have to do it. And I was like, yeah, they still have a place for it. And I'm like, okay. And I thought I was just in this crisis of, what do I need right now?
Mm.
What do I need right now? And so I have a dear friend. I'm blessed to have a dear friend who's known me for 1,000 years. And I thought, well, what do I need in order to go?
Mm.
And I thought about her and I thought, like, if she took me, like I could go with her. And of course, it's funny. And I didn't realize this until I told the story to somebody else. She lives in Portland, which is like resistance. We can talk about resistance, but it's like, oh, okay. So I didn't realize that little wrinkle because I'm very clever. I'm very clever.
Yes.
But I thought, well, she can take me. She can take me. And I kind of imagined how she would have held me right behind the elbow and kind of guided me gently and listened to all my excuses and stories and all my nervousness. Mm-hmm. And she would have said, okay, we're going. Okay, we're going. I love you. We're going. And she could take me. And then the switch came for me when I realized, hey, wait a minute. She calls me. When she has a problem, she calls me. So I trust her judgment and I have those skills. I could take me. I could take me. And it sounds like such a simple thing, but it came as an epiphany. So that's how I got myself dressed that morning. I can take me. I can take me. Put your gym clothes on. I can take me. Get me to the car. I can take me. I can take me. Marshaling the strength that I was drawing from her, my relationship with her.
Wow. That's amazing. And that unlock, it seems so liberating as you frame it that way. I want to go back to a place that typically we don't, as you say, know that we have this, that we're sort of holding this baggage of guilt and shame. Because I do feel like that is such a kryptonite for so many people, even if we can't identify it or articulate it. I also have many experiences in my younger years where an event would occur and you brush it off and you keep going. But as an older person, I'm looking back on these moments and I've sensed the trigger as I've become a better noticer of self. All these little areas that still make me feel that shame. And some of them were around body shame, some were around some bullying things. Do guilt and shame, I think it's easy to think about shame and guilt when something traumatic happens, when something in our lives happen that's more of a larger experience. And wasn't really the case for me. It doesn't sound like you would have bet $1,000 that shame wasn't really one in your hand. How do we know? And how do we tease this out? Is it really about the noticing where we really become more subtly tuned in?
So I think it is about and by the way, we're talking about shame right now, but I think in terms of shame being one part of a triangle, fear. Mm-hmm. Some people it's fear and some people it's anger. I think I'm actually pretty good with anger. I'm pretty clear. But so I think that it's definitely about noticing. And I think one way that it comes up in my life is I bump into it. Wait, I'm stuck. Why? And so I have to go digging. So sometimes I bump into it accidentally, and then I have to say, wait, it's like going in the closet in the dark and going wait, what is this little obstacle? And then turning the light on and going, oh, wow, it's this. I had no idea. So where things are crunchy, where things aren't working, that's one way. And the other thing is Paul Gilbert, who's an English compassion expert, he talks about that you always have of the three, fear, anger, shame, that you may think you don't have one, And you may actually, as I did, actively resist it. And it's like, odds are start there. So you can also just kind of say, hey, any fear today? Just take an inventory. Who's here? Who's showing up? What's present? And that's actually how the compassion, where you asked about how it shows up in my life. Sometimes these tools, by practicing, often I've built that new neural pathway. I've built a new response. And so sometimes, and this is delightful, I'm already using the tool. I just reacted compassionately, spontaneously, like, wow, like I wouldn't have normally done that. Like sometimes it's just out there because it's a habit. And sometimes I have to go like, wait a minute, I'm really struggling. What is it? I have to go digging into my toolkit. So both of those are true. But I definitely believe in practicing, rehearsing these things, building, kind of putting an icon on your desktop where you can say, ooh, it's just easier to access that. And sometimes it just pops up and it's in use. And sometimes you have to go digging for it. I believe in both of those things.
Can you talk a little bit about neural pathways and how self-compassion, you mentioned, in a conversation we had a little bit ago, that being compassionate is a way to activate a neural network in our brain. And I want to get to why empathy is a different thing altogether. But for now, just sort of staying in this space of, in our program, we've identified neuroplasticity as something that is, possible at any age in life. And that practice is really the place that sort of stirs the drink is just practicing in general. There's a lot of theory around habit formation, behavioral change, all of those sorts of things. Where do you make that, literal connection with, kind of the neural networks in our brain and, starting to kind of find those crunchy places, and where are things detaching and then attaching? That's a lot, but just,
it's a lot. And so the neuroplasticity, our brains are changing. They are evolving, whether we are working them or not. And so you might as well point it in a direction that's helpful to you. You might as well.
Right.
So on the neural pathways, I think I'll answer that shortly, because I think I'm probably not I'm not a brain scientist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a human trying to do the best she can.
Me too.
With the best information possible. It is that, so what you practice, what you habitually practice we know this, the neurons start firing when what we practice fires together, gets stronger. And so let's use this imagination of ours intentionally to build strong skills. And we know that neural pathways get myelinated, and so they go faster, and then the receiving cells can reset faster the more we do it. So it makes sense to practice. The responses, and I see this from my own life, it showed up where I'm like, wow, I normally would have just flattened that person, and instead I was like this. I went directly to, without having to go like, want to slug you, not gonna do something else, where I'm like, oh, like it's just there. So not getting too far into the neurology of it. Although I'm fascinated with brain science, so it is very, very, very useful.
Right. It sounds like you're becoming unconsciously competent, where the more you practice it, as you just said, it becomes something that you do, and you're not exerting extra bandwidth or cognitive load on trying to remember to do the thing.
Yes, exactly. And so I will say this. So I know that our brains function, that we have the default mode network,
Hmm.
That is our part. Like if we're just driving and we're not really paying attention, the default mode network is there to keep us safe. And it can be it's just running in the background, but it is looking for threats.
Mm.
It has a negative bias, and that's its job. But this is not scientific. I call it the resting bitch brain. Because it's kind of looking for like, wait, that person's not looking at me like, or they looked at me wrong, like they're cooking, it's suspicious, but that's its job. So
Mm.
whenever we can take back the steering wheel of our attention and say, okay, thanks for covering while I was on break, but now I'm on. So I can pay attention, like what's going on here. Whenever we can take the steering wheel back, it's a good thing. And knowing without judgment that our mind wanders.
Hmm.
It's what it does. When we're dead, it won't. But as long as we're alive, it's going to wander. And so really, 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 really don't worry when it wanders. See, I hear people all the time like, oh, I suck at meditation because my mind wanders. It's like, no, you are excelling in living and having an operating brain, because that's what we do. And it's just about saying, oh, gently, oh, bring it back. I'll take the steering wheel back. And so that attitude of like thanking the default mode network, thanks, I got it from here, is a really valuable habit. Similarly, internal critic. If you view your, and Kristin Neff has a wonderful exercise, highly recommend everything she does, by the way. It's looking at your inner critic as if they were trying to protect you in a misguided way. Like they want to, like, oh, you may get humiliated if you say something, so don't speak. Like if you view it as if it had a misguided, a generally good intention, but just really tragically misguided, then you can say, thank you for trying to keep me safe. But I got this. I'm adult now. I can make a mistake and I'll still be okay. That'll be, like I got this now, and take it back and practice. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it seems like I'm noticing a pattern of
Yes.
that your recommendations and these practical applications are counterintuitive to what most of us have lived in or kind of grown up under this guise of, if something negative is happening, you push it down. If you're expressing emotion, you try to play it cool, right? If you trip and fall, then you're an idiot. Another one that I hear all the time is, that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
Right. That phrase of, and it kind of reminds me of like a fixed mindset, right? It's like we just kind of live up to this expectation that we have created in our own heads. And it seems like everything you're mentioning is sort of going the other direction. Like, instead of fighting it, welcome it. Instead of arguing with it, ask it why. I get a lot of acceptance and curiosity that you're sharing here. And I also am channeling now those folks who are, California Highway Patrolmen or nurses or doctors or, work in government, and thinking about, okay, this is all really great, and I can do this stuff in my downtime or however I want to construct that. How do I do this in the real world, in sort of day-to-day life?
Yes. Okay. So by the way, you read it completely right. That is, I enjoy looking at improv techniques. I think the yes and, or yes let's, like that is or the oh goody. Oh goody. Here's a conflict. This is a preschool teacher in me, but like we bring out the train when you wanted to have a conflict. Like there's going to be a conflict in 30 seconds. Like, watch your clock. Boom. Oh goody. We get to go deal with it. So absolutely step in and accept. I want to dig into a little bit before we get back to the other world is, this is how I am. This is just the way I am. I like to say this is how in preschool, in the boardroom, wherever, say this is how I am right now. Just add a right now. In this moment, I don't want to listen. In this moment, I don't want to feel compassion for you. In this moment, I don't want to feel accepting because that's who I am right now. And now, who do you want to be? So I even like the expression of like, oh, don't be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. Like, who do you want to be? And then you got moves. Then you got moves. Okay. So so now what do you do if you're in a hospital on the front line or in a line of duty? I think it's surprising that one of my favorite images, self-compassion images, comes from a Mission Impossible movie. I don't know which one. It was just somehow it was playing almost on a loop one weekend. My kids were watching it, and I just kept seeing the same scene, which is the very handsome, I think is Ethan Hawke is the character. He's in he's on a cliff in a climactic scene, and that's not a spoiler alert. It's on the movie trailer. At some point, this very handsome bad guy has him unexpectedly on his back, and there's a knife like right at his eye, like just right at his eye. So like self-compassion, like, wait a minute, am I in the right channel here? It's like, yes, because he spends zero cycles on, why is this happening to me? I'm the star of the movie. How come this handsome bad guy is doing this again? I thought I killed him yesterday. Like he spends no energy on that. Instead, he goes right to, boom, what do I need right now? What do I need in this moment? And he goes right to like, oh, I need to, do a little flip thing and win the movie.
Flex my bicep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's no chatter. And so my wish, especially for people on the front lines, is that they can be free of the chatter that is not helpful. How come he got promoted and I didn't? How come am I the best? And we're just the chatter stuff is not helpful. So I want people to be super focused and present to this is happening right now.
That question that you ask, that he says right there, is what do I need? What's the most productive thing? To me, that open-ended question just gave my brain a problem to solve as opposed to a problem to ruminate on and to corroborate. And it seems, again, one of those little mental judo moves of inviting ourselves to become part of the solution. And then another thing that really comes through when I hear you talking about the chatter and the why did they get a promotion and hey, I'm a good cop. Why are Black Lives Matter attacking me? Right? Is the fact that that's the lack of efficiency. We only have so much energy and we only have so much attention and ability to stay focused on what it is that we're doing. And if we're spending some of that precious fuel within that chatter, we're not going to be as good as we could be, I guess is another way, selfish way to think about it. Like I want to be my best. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that too, where is there a way to kind of tease this or trick ourselves a little bit into thinking, hey, self-compassion actually is something that's going to make me feel better and perform better and just sort of be better. Do we need to get past the gate of our ego to be able to do this? And are there...
Yes. And are there what? Let me finish your question.
Oh, just well, I just was going to finish with just, are there ways to do that get past the bullshit detector that we're going to have?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the bullshit detector is really, so there's been a lot of study in the last now almost 20 years about self-compassion. Before that, it wasn't on the map. We think it's going to make us soft. It's weak.
Soft skill, right?
It's indulgent. So it's kind of like I call that bonbons and bubble baths. And that I think importantly, that we'll lose our edge.
Yeah.
Which we are. And you think, interestingly, and when you challenge those thoughts, I think you'd find you don't really believe them. So if you walk down a school hallway and you heard a teacher saying the things to the students that you often say to yourself, you're an idiot, you'll never get anywhere, you'll never amount to anything, would you be like, you know what, I'm hiring that teacher, that's really good? It's like, no. So you don't really believe that untended harsh critic is your winner. You don't really believe that. And the good news is you don't have to believe that. You don't have to go through that logic, because there's good research now. Self-compassionate people versus self-esteem. So self-esteem is you are only as good as, like, what have you done for me lately? Your last prize. It's comparative. So the second you lose, not so good. Are you going to try something new? Turns out, no. No, thanks. Are you going to try again after you failed? Ooh, no. If I'm a self-esteem, if that's my currency, no, thanks. Not going to go there. I'm going to do what I'm the best at and just do that. Well, that's not life, right? So self-compassionate people will say, they'll apologize. If they've done something wrong, they'll try again after failure. Here's one of my favorite ones. They will evaluate their own performance more in line with objective evaluators. Whereas the self-esteem people, if they get any, even neutral criticism, sets them off. Even neutral. That was fine. You did fine. That's threatening.
Fine. That's average.
In experiments, they don't say bad things. They just say neutral things, and the people like do the rest of the work themselves. So, so in a team, especially in a team, medicine, in a team where medical errors are dangerous, you want people to say, you know what, I don't feel rested enough to, or whatever it is. Like I'm not in a position where I'm going to dose this correctly. I need help. Or I need everyone to shut up and leave the room for a second so I can think.
Yeah.
Give me a minute, or whatever it is. I need whatever I need. So you want people to have a realistic assessment, to be able to see what's present right now. What do I need right now to deliver a safe dose? To make decisions, second by second decisions on the street, in the ICU. Like, what do I need? The people in self-esteem, when people do criticize them, even again, just saying they did fine, they tend to blame it. They like, oh, the reviewer, they don't know me. Or they'll even catastrophize and say, that was horrible. That was the worst job. And you're like, no, actually it was fine. It really was fine. So we have some, we have the ego thing. The ego, and we have to overcome some bad training.
Wow, there's so much in there. It feels like that objective assessment is, I'm connecting it to, I think, sort of a loose definition of self-compassion that just rattles around in my head, is that, hey, I'm human too. Yeah. And I am just part of, I'm one of many. And so I can evaluate this one, as opposed to hiding and, holding and faking and all of that stuff. How do you, and I get the logic behind, hey, I need a minute, I'm going to screw up the dose, right? Hey, I need to, evaluate myself honestly right now. No, I shouldn't be getting in, the fighter pilot seat to go on this mission. How is it possible to develop the psychological safety within teams? And I'm sort of thinking about, again, back to this, grind it out, kick ass, sleep when you die type of narrative that, or just like, oh, I'm fine, everything's fine. Like, how do we normalize this. It makes perfect sense when you say this to me. If I'm in, a part of an intact team and we're, doing our thing together, is this a training that can start to unpack this for the group? Are there psychologically safe ways for people to begin to share? What's your experience within that context?
So it comes up in so many different contexts, but I think one is really starting with language. And what you're talking about is building a culture that is more mindful, that is more present focused. And I think a lot of I'm an amateur anthropologist, goes to language. Like, what do you call that? And listening for, even you said, oh, is there something selfish about it? Selfishly, can we make this? It's like, that's not selfish, so have a, one way to do it is almost make a game of it. Like, oh, like, I lied. Really? Did you lie? Like I just got you. It's like, it's selfish. Is that true? Is it selfish to be, to show up for work ready? And so maybe I would start. So the cue I use is really, what do I need right now? What do I need to do this, my intention? What do I need right now? And then I noticed that I think if people do a real dig into what the acts of kindness to themselves, the acts of self-compassion, what they are, I think it's actually, I would start there. What have you done to prepare yourself to do this job, whether it's highway patrol, meeting someone in the hospital, being a parent, being a partner, encountering any other human beings? It's like, what am I doing to prepare myself to do this? Am I ready? What do I need to be ready? And I think if you look at those, at what you come up with, it's not like, oh, I need more bonbons. It's not a mani-pedi. That's not what comes up. I mean, maybe sometimes it could be. I actually don't diss those things. Maybe it is. You need a little bit of human touch or whatever it is. But often for me, it's an act of just in my life. It could be like doing the dishes before I go to bed. It could be calling someone and saying, ooh, the project is off schedule.
I love the open-ended question. What do I need right now? What do I?
And it's also it's not a wimpy question. What do I need to be ready? You got your uniform. You got to get your head and your heart on straight.
Right. I can imagine it being helpful as well to kind of front load your list of what does ready look like. It looks like, proper hydration. It looks like proper sleep. It looks like being in, a good relationship. It looks like, having your clothes ready to go and having however all that shakes out. But, taking some of the sort of the busy work of trying to improvise readiness out of the equation. And then, because that can appeal to people who are very practical, kind of type A, oh, here's my checklist of readiness. And if I look at, what do I need to be ready? And I'm looking at my list. Oh, there's still 3 things on this list. And those 3 things are actually acts of kindness towards myself, because I'm trying to put myself in the best possible situation to be my best self. And so I'm trying to kind of like tease the competitiveness, almost that we can play into. And again, I sense this through line throughout this conversation is there's never getting rid of so much. It's reimagining and re-envisioning. And with that new lens or that new angle or that new relationship, old stale material might take on a new value in a way. The lotus grows out of that muck, right? I mean, there's a lot of those sort of the imagery around a lot of that stuff is is really cool. I like the gamification with the work, I think that's, that
It
can
works
be
for me.
fun.
And it's funny you say competitive. So I was a nursery school teacher at a co-op. So I have a lot of cooperative values. I have a ton of that. And when it comes down to it, I'm super competitive. It helps to know that. So going back to your checklist, the one concern about that is that I don't want, because our lives aren't perfect. Part of the whole self-compassion thing is that is to get over the fact that you had this idea in mind of perfection. Like, oh, like think about for me, parenting is just such an easy access thing. If you have a parent, you know you're imperfect. Like,
Yes.
and you
yes.
know you want to be, you so want to be, and then you're like, no, I just fed it its breakfast. Like I just treated it. I just pushed out the door and to get to school, or I yelled, or whatever you did. Like you're like, but you have this idea of like perfection, and so I don't want this. This really shouldn't be. I'll say shouldn't, which is a judgy word, but something else to beat yourself up about. To say like, oh, I have to be in a perfect relationship, or perfectly healthy, perfectly hydrated, perfectly rested. Because then you like say, okay, am I ready? You're like, no, I'm a mess. I'm a freaking mess. And so it's really say like, wait, what do I need in this moment to be ready? And there may be a really hard moment where you're like, you know what, I'm not ready. I can't get there right now. I shouldn't be driving, or whatever it is. And you kind of need to listen for that. Like, ooh, gee, I got health issues to deal with, or I have this to deal with. But so I want to take it from just be aware of your ideals. And the adjustment I make is I'm yearning to be that wise, perfect parent. I have a yearning to that. And so what do I need to get closer to that ideal without saying, gee, I am not hydrating or sleeping, or, I'm this compassionate mess. So not to do it, not to make it another thing that is going to be like, well, that's impossible, so I'm just going to be my bitchy self.
Right. Right.
Not to make it, so just be aware of that kind of perfection thing that comes up.
Right. No, that makes sense. That's a good point. I'm mindful of time, and I want us to pivot briefly to, you mentioned something earlier today that I hadn't really thought of before, and it was around a little bit of a warning around empathy.
Okay. So this is one of my favorite things to think about. So empathy means feeling with. So if you are, that I can feel your feelings. And when you're close to someone, our mirror neurons kick in. And if you're sneezing, I'll sneeze. If you're yawning, I'll yawn. And the circuitry that lights up for us is as if we had the pain. If I'm feeling your pain, or that it's our brain is feeling it personally, which is fun if it's a positive emotion. Dig in. Help yourself. If it's a distressing emotion, if it's painful emotion, then I want to feel connected to you. But if I'm taking that on as if it's my own pain, that can be overwhelming. We see it in the healthcare services all the time. It's just like exhausting. So people talk about empathy fatigue. That's where that comes. It's a distressful thing. And it actually leads to a condition of wanting to avoid it. Like, no, thanks. No. Whereas with compassion, if I can stay grounded, if I can stay, this is me, I am connected to you, and I see your suffering, I see you're in pain, but I have some sense of my attention in my body. Could be 1 foot on the floor. If I keep some of my mental attention here, and I know you're distressed, then I can help you. It kicks in a different circuitry, and I can then say, he's upset. Let's dig in. And I have, it's not exhausting. There's still a connection, and I can be actually helpful. I got moves. I got
Mm.
moves. And,
Yeah,
yeah,
moves,
I
right.
got moves.
Is it
And so I
possible
just
to,
think, going back, let me say one more thing, and that is
yeah.
that so in self-compassion and in compassion for others, there is, by the way, a relationship that developing self-compassion does tend to improve people's scores on compassion for others, and vice versa. So there is this mushing, which is really helpful. So it's not selfish. But what I've learned more than anything is that suffering can isolate you or it can connect you. It's true for our own suffering, and it's true in dealing with other people. So the test for whether it's indulgent or makes you weak is, does it connect you or does it isolate you? Because if caring for yourself connects you with others, if I get a good night's sleep and I can be a better parent or a better nurse or a better officer, that's not selfish. That's connecting.
That's a really nice way to simplify it in the moment. And I find that it's so helpful to when things are basically yes or no, there's that signal to noise type of ratio where that feels like a really strong tune in. Like, is this help? Is this connecting me or isolating me? Is this, and it feels like if you can stack that with what's the most productive thing to do right now, or what do I need right now, that can be a very informative to take the next best step to kind of move into. I want to, can you pivot from empathy to compassion? Empathy fatigue notwithstanding, I'm a type of person that feels others, and it's gotten me into trouble in my life for sure.
Yeah.
And I really kind of caught that tip that you just gave on the fly there about having one foot on the ground, and then also having some attention on myself. We know nervous systems speak with one another, mirror neurons and all that. How, like, tell me a little bit more about that to take us out. Like, because I feel like that comes off as being selfish. If you're telling me some story about something difficult for you, and I'm paying attention to myself, or at least being aware of myself, I could see how one could make the case that, wow, I'm really self-indulgent. Like,
Yeah.
why am I not being full-throated? So
Eyes on me, Damon.
yeah, right. Ease my guilt on this one, Martha. How,
Okay.
and give it in that tip about the foot on the ground. Like, give me.
Yes. Where does that come? Okay. So the foot on the ground comes from hospice workers. Um, Hospice workers say that they use a technique, and they're entering rooms of massive suffering all the time. They could be completely overwhelmed, and they would say, just keep some. And it's not to say like you're not doing your laundry list or you're not, planning your next vacation, but it's that you have some of your attention on just one of your feet on the floor. Like you are just grounded. So it is just a way of signaling deeply to your body, this is me, I'm here. So it could be, and it's not like you are thinking about your life, and that it's just you are grounded and rooted in your body. So hands on the table, human touch, something that just says, I am here. This is me, and I am listening to you. So one of my favorite teachers, Shauna Shapiro at the University of Santa Clara, she trains therapists, and her advice is for therapists to spend over 90%, put 90% of their mindful attention on their bodies during a session. Over 90%. Like, that's wild. That's wild to me.
That's wild to me.
It blows my mind. And she argues that is a net benefit, because otherwise we are just, our minds wander. Our minds wander and our attention wanders. And it doesn't really help the person if we are not really present. So it's just a way of just signaling, I am grounded, I'm connected to you, and I can then you can help.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I am sure when our cohort watches this, they're going to have questions. Would you be
sure.
willing to respond, email, or maybe even later in the month? That would be amazing.
You know,
This
it'd
has
be
been
fun just to batch
amazing.
them all together and then deal with them all together. That would be super, super, super fun for me.
That's what we'll do.
And
Absolutely.
I have one other thing. If
Yeah.
anybody's still on the fence about, oh, self-compassion, it's too wimpy. Levels of self-compassion predicted PTSD in soldiers more than the hours in combat.
Whoa.
Still think it's not badass?
So the higher level of self-compassion, the lower levels of PTSD.
It predicted it more than the hours in if you hold the hours of combat steady or constant.
Wow.
So this is not bubble baths and bonbons.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I have anything against those, but this is serious focusing, do your stuff. So, and the
Beautiful.
other question I'll leave you with is intention. So at that moment of doing your checklist, what is your intention? Right now I'm stepping into my shift at the hospital. All right, what do I need to be ready? At the end of that, close that. Now you step into your house.
What's my intention?
Yeah, what do I need to be ready for this now? Closing that chapter, embracing it. So setting your intention also helps with that. A focused checklist, not bringing work home or home to work.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. This was
pleasure.
incredible.
Thank you.
I will be batching these questions and we'll circle back with you within a couple of weeks.
Okay. Bye. Good
All
luck.
the best.
Nice work, you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.